There is a moment in every person's inner journey when they realize that what they are desperately running toward keeps drifting further away. The more they reach, the more life seems to retreat. The harder they grip, the faster things slip between their fingers. It is only when their energy withdraws from chasing that a profound shift occurs. Life begins to come toward them. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because the internal posture they hold toward life finally transforms. Chasing is an act of scarcity. It says, "I do not trust that what is meant for me will arrive unless I hunt it down." But when you step out of that state, you begin to discover that most of what you were pursuing was never aligned with you to begin with. When your energy stops chasing, your presence becomes rooted rather than scattered. You stop leaking your power into fantasies, fears, and imagined futures. You become more anchored in yourself, more attuned to the quiet intuition that had been trying to speak beneath the noise of your pursuit. In this stillness you learn that you do not need to prove your worth nor convince life to notice you. Worth speaks silently, it does not negotiate. And in this silence, life begins to recognize something in you that it had overlooked before. You shift from the energy of grasping to the energy of attracting. The truth is that what belongs to you cannot feel you chasing it. It can only feel you embodying yourself. When you stop running toward things, you begin to see which of them naturally drift closer, which ones hold their position, and which ones disappear entirely. This clarity is not a loss, it is liberation. The things that do move toward you do so because they resonate with who you are, not who you were trying to convince the world you might become. As your energy withdraws from need, it moves into alignment. This is where opportunities begin to find you without force, where people who value your presence step forward without hesitation, where paths that once felt blocked begin to open. You become magnetic not because you seek attention, but because you embody coherence. When you no longer chase anything outside yourself, everything in your life begins to reorganize around the strength of your inner center. This is the paradox life waits for everyone to discover. Nothing you force will sustain you, and everything that is meant for you moves naturally toward the person you become when you stop abandoning yourself. When your energy no longer chases, life begins to respond to you, not as someone striving, but as someone worthy. Chasing drains personal power because it is rooted in the belief that what you seek exists outside of you, always at a distance, always ahead, always requiring more from you than you have to give. When you chase, you operate from an inner posture of lack, as though you are incomplete until something or someone fills the space within you. This mindset fragments your energy. It pulls you away from your inner center and scatters your attention across possibilities, fears, and imagined scenarios. In this fragmented state, you lose touch with your natural sense of worth. You begin to measure your value through outcomes, responses, and the approval of others, believing that only by securing what you're pursuing will you finally feel whole. But in truth, the act of chasing is what creates and reinforces the very emptiness you're running from. Scarcity is not just an emotion. It becomes an identity when chasing becomes a habit. Every time you push, force, or overextend yourself to obtain something, you subtly reinforce the belief that you do not already possess the qualities necessary for it to come toward you naturally. You teach yourself that life will not respond unless you initiate, that opportunities will not recognize you unless you shout, that people will not value you unless you prove your worth. This internal narrative erodes your confidence over time. You begin to operate from urgency, fear, and self-doubt, believing that standing still is dangerous because stillness forces you to confront your unmet needs and unhealed wounds. Chasing also distorts your perception. It causes you to romanticize what you desire and overlook what is misaligned. You become so focused on obtaining something that you ignore the subtle signals showing you it may not be meant for you at all. In this sense, chasing is not only an energetic leak but also a psychological trap, one that blinds you to your own deeper truth. The more you pursue something from scarcity, the more power you give it over your emotional state. Your inner world becomes reactive. depending on external outcomes, to determine your self-worth. When you are caught in the cycle of chasing, you disconnect from your intuition, which is the quiet inner compass that knows what belongs in your life and what does not. Instead of listening inwardly, you look outward, hoping the world will confirm your value. But anything you chase out of fear cannot truly satisfy you, because the energy with which you pursue something determines the energy it brings into your life. Stillness reveals what is truly meant for you because it dissolves the noise that distorts your perception. When you are constantly moving, striving, and reaching, your mind becomes crowded with assumptions, fears, and imagined possibilities. You end up confusing desire with alignment, urgency with truth, and external momentum with inner guidance. But when you slow down, when you allow yourself to settle into silence, you begin to see life without the projections that once clouded your judgment. Stillness clears the fog. It brings you back to yourself, back to an inner space that does not chase or cling but simply observes. In that observation, you start to distinguish between what genuinely resonates with your spirit and what only appeals to your fear of missing out, being alone, or being left behind. Stillness is not passive. It is an active state of awareness. It is the moment when your energy is no longer scattered across imagined futures or old narratives. When your attention returns to the present, you gain the ability to sense the subtle difference between what drains you and what strengthens you, what expands your inner world and what constricts it. In silence, you feel the weight of certain connections fall away because they were being held together only by your effort. You also feel the quiet pull of new paths, not loud, not urgent, but unmistakably aligned. Stillness lets truth speak in its natural volume, soft, steady, and persistent. In this space you also recognize how much of your life was shaped by impulse rather than intention. You see the patterns you repeated, the people you pursued, and the opportunities you forced, not because they were meant for you, but because you feared the emptiness that comes with waiting. Stillness removes the illusion that you must constantly act to be worthy of receiving. It shows you that what is authentic does not demand you to chase it. It gravitates toward your presence when you become anchored in who you are instead of who you think you need to be. And as you sit in this quiet truth, you begin to notice something else. The things that remain in your life when you stop pulling or pushing are the things that truly belong. Stillness becomes a filter. It separates what is temporary from what is essential, what is convenient from what is destined. It is in this calm self-awareness that you finally see what has been trying to reach you all along. Self-possession magnetizes the opportunities you once pursued because it shifts your energy from seeking validation to embodying inner certainty. When you are rooted in yourself, you no longer try to impress, convince, or prove your worth to the world. Instead, your presence communicates an unspoken confidence that draws people, events, and possibilities toward you. Self-possession is not arrogance. It is the calm recognition of your inherent value. It emerges when you stop abandoning yourself for approval and begin honoring your own instincts, boundaries, and desires. This groundedness becomes magnetic because authenticity is rare, and those who carry it naturally attract what resonates with their frequency. When you fully inhabit yourself, you no longer chase outcomes because you trust your inner alignment more than external circumstances. You begin to realize that the energy you radiate shapes what appears in your life. Opportunities are not simply random occurrences. They respond to the state of your inner world. If you operate from insecurity, you attract situations that test your self-worth. If you move from fear, you attract experiences that reinforce caution. But when you stand firmly in your own presence, life sends you what reflects that wholeness. It is as if your energy becomes a signal, calling forth the paths, people, and possibilities that match your internal truth. Self-possession also sharpens your perception. You are no longer blinded by desperation or the need for immediate fulfillment. Instead, you can discern which opportunities are authentic and which are merely distractions. This clarity allows you to engage with life from a place of choice rather than need, and the less you need something, the more naturally it flows toward you. Your grounded energy creates a gravitational field, one that pulls in what aligns with your strength and repels what is built on instability. There is a powerful shift that happens when you stop chasing and start embodying. The opportunities you once ran after begin to return, not because they suddenly changed, but because you did. The strength of your presence influences how others respond to you, how life reveals itself to you, and how the world perceives your worth. When you possess yourself fully, you operate from a center that cannot be shaken by rejection or uncertainty. This stability is attractive. It signals that you are ready, not to force life into shape, but to receive what was always meant to come when you finally stopped running. Your energy becomes a signal of worth, rather than a plea for validation when you stop shaping yourself to be chosen and begin standing firmly in who you are. The truth is that people feel your energy long before they understand your words. They can sense whether you are operating from confidence or insecurity, from wholeness or fear, from grounded self-respect or a quiet desperation for approval. When your energy carries neediness, even subtly it pushes things away. It communicates that you believe something outside yourself must confirm your value. But when you shift from needing to be validated to simply expressing your authentic presence, your energy begins to resonate with strength, clarity, and calm self-assurance. This inner posture has a magnetic quality that cannot be faked and does not need to be announced. When you no longer seek validation, you stop bending your identity to fit what you imagine others want from you. You no longer perform, exaggerate, shrink, or adapt in ways that betray your inner truth. Instead, your actions, words, and decisions arise from a deeper alignment. This coherence becomes an energetic signature, one that signals to the world that you recognize your own worth without needing external confirmation. People respond differently to you. They sense that you are not asking to be liked, chosen, or accepted. You are simply existing in your fullness, and that presence alone sets a standard for how others treat you. As your energy shifts, your relationships shift as well. You no longer feel compelled to chase after affection, attention, or opportunities. You do not tolerate situations that diminish your sense of self. Instead, you naturally gravitate towards spaces where you are valued without having to earn it, and because you are no longer driven by the fear of being unworthy, you begin to attract people and experiences that reflect your inner stability. Validation becomes irrelevant because your worth is no longer up for negotiation. This transformation affects every area of your life. Your decisions become clearer because you are not weighed down by the desire to please. Your boundaries strengthen because you prioritize self-respect over approval. Your presence deepens because you are no longer distracted by the need to be seen. Your energy becomes a quiet but undeniable declaration. You know who you are, and in that state, life responds not to your longing but to your power. Detachment aligns your outer life with your inner truth because it releases the grip of expectation, fear, and emotional overinvestment that blurs your ability to see what genuinely fits your path. When you are attached to outcomes, people, or timelines, your perspective becomes distorted. You begin to interpret events not as they are, but through the lens of what you desperately want them to be. This creates inner conflict. A part of you may know that something is misaligned, yet attachment convinces you to hold on, to wait, to hope, to force. Detachment breaks this cycle. It allows you to step back from the noise of desire and anxiety so you can finally hear the quieter truth within you, the truth that has been overshadowed by your longing. Detachment does not mean apathy or emotional coldness. It means allowing things to be what they are without trying to bend them into what you wish they were. It means noticing your reactions without letting them dictate your choices. In this state, your inner truth becomes more visible because it is no longer competing with fear-driven impulses. You can see which relationships drain you, which opportunities feel forced, and which paths resonate with a deeper sense of authenticity. When you detach, you stop confusing attachment with meaning. You stop mistaking intensity for connection and effort for alignment. You begin to perceive the subtle difference between what genuinely nurtures you and what only distracts you from yourself. As your inner truth becomes clearer, your outer life begins to shift in response. You no longer cling to roles, identities, or relationships that contradict your deeper values. You let go of situations that require you to shrink or compromise. You stop pursuing things that demand self-betrayal as their price. This inner recalibration naturally influences your external world. New choices emerge. Different people enter your life. Old patterns dissolve. What once felt chaotic begins to feel orderly, not because the world changed, but because you are finally aligned with yourself. Detachment also frees you from the illusion of control. You stop trying to force life and instead allow it to unfold according to truth rather than fear. In this openness, you become more receptive to the opportunities, insights, and synchronicities that were always available but previously invisible. Detachment becomes a gateway to alignment. It bridges the gap between who you truly are and the life you are meant to live, allowing everything external to reorganize itself around the clarity you hold within. What is authentic finds its way when you stop forcing outcomes. Because authenticity is not something that can be manufactured, chased, or manipulated into existence. It emerges naturally when you allow life to unfold without imposing your fears, timelines, or expectations upon it. Forcing outcomes comes from a place of inner tension, the belief that if you do not push, demand, or control, everything you desire will slip away. But this mindset closes you off from the very truths and opportunities that could serve you. It keeps you entangled in resistance, shaping your actions around fear rather than alignment. When you stop forcing outcomes, you release the pressure that distorts your perception, and you open the space needed for what is real to reveal itself. Authenticity has its own rhythm. It does not respond to urgency or desperation. It thrives in environments where honesty and patience exist. When you stop trying to make things happen before their time or in forms that do not match your inner truth, you begin to recognize how much you are holding on to illusions. You see that certain situations only seemed appealing because you feared not having better options. You realize that some relationships only felt meaningful because you were projecting your hopes onto them. And you discover that many of the paths you once pursued were actually detours created by impatience. Letting go of force allows you to see these illusions dissolve, revealing what was real underneath. As you stop pushing, you become more attuned to the subtle signals life sends you. You notice which connections feel effortless, which opportunities arise without struggle, which choices give you a sense of inner calm rather than anxiety. The right things begin to move toward you in quiet, often unexpected ways. They do not require you to abandon yourself, compromise your values, or chase after them. Instead, they meet you where you are, matching the level of truth you've come to embody. Authenticity gravitates toward authenticity. It cannot be drawn to a version of you that is forcing, pretending, or performing. When you stop forcing outcomes, you also begin trusting that what is meant for you cannot be lost. This trust transforms your relationship with uncertainty. You stop grasping at possibilities just to ease your fear. You stop settling for almost right situations because you think nothing better will come. Instead, you learn to wait, to listen, and to allow life to bring you what resonates with your essence. What is true, aligned, and meaningful eventually finds its way, not because you chased it, but because you created space for it to arrive. In the end, life is not asking you to run, to chase, or to grasp at anything that must be forced. It is asking you to return to yourself, to the quiet power that emerges when you no longer measure your worth by who stays, what arrives, or how fast things unfold. When you stop abandoning your inner center, everything in your life begins to move according to a truer rhythm. The connections that remain do so because they resonate with who you are becoming. The opportunities that appear do so because they match the strength of your presence. And the paths that open do so because you are finally aligned with the truth you once overlooked in your pursuit of certainty. This journey is not about becoming someone new, but about shedding everything that made you chase what was never meant to stay. When your energy no longer runs after life, life finds its way back to you, naturally, quietly, and with a clarity that could only be revealed once you chose to stand still within your own worth.